So it looks like we're finally going to be getting Arman Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev potentially in December. But the second half of this is a little more interesting than the first half. He says if Islam can't return before December, he believes that the UFC will make an interim title fight. Now, if we have an interim title fight, where would this go? Because obviously we have Arman, which would be in this title fight. He's not going to wait to go against whoever wins the interim title fight. He would be in this. If we look at these rankings right here in the lightweight division, Charles Oliveira, number 2 right now. He just beat him in his last fight. Are we going to get an immediate rematch of those two for an interim belt? That wouldn't really make sense in my opinion. So who would be the next guy? Would it be Justin Gaethje? I mean, that would be a cool fight. But I feel like if they do end up doing this, it's really going to be between Dan Hooker or Michael Chandler. I think the UFC wants to get Michael Chandler his fight because right now he's not fighting Conor McGregor. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think McGregor is ever stepping back into the octagon. I mean, there's no reason for McGregor to come back. He has all the money in the world. I think we all know this. I know there's people holding out hope, but I don't think McGregor's ever coming back. So maybe they'll give this to Michael Chandler just to make him feel a little bit better for waiting out, give him his title opportunity, even though I don't think he deserves it. Dan Hooker, though, versus Arman Tsarukyan, fantastic fight. Sign me up for that. If we're going through, we can look through Arman's last fights, right? It's not like we're going to be seeing a rematch against anyone so far, since he's only been in the UFC since 2019. His first fight was against Islam, and he lost that fight by decision. So that's why it's so exciting to see this fight come back, because that was 5 years ago when Arman was only 22 years old at that point. So it would be very exciting to see these guys go up against each other again. But he hasn't had any fights where we would have to worry about a rematch besides Charles. So all these would be new matchups. I mean, if we get a Justin Gaethje, if we get a Dustin Poirier, which I don't really think would happen, I think Dan Hooker would be the best option as of right now. And there's a lot of guys in this division up here that don't have a fight right now. So I think if they were to make an interim belt, this would be the best fight, in my opinion. The most exciting fight to make if they don't just do the rematch. I don't think they should do the rematch. Out of everyone, obviously, Charles is the second best, right behind Arman right now, and they just went to decision, a close fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they try to push that. It would be a little bit weird, though, since Arman just beat him, and I feel like that's a bit risky for Arman because Charles could go in there and pull out a victory. I mean, he's a very good fighter, but I feel like if you gave him a guy like Dan Hooker, be very exciting. Obviously, the comeback of Dan Hooker that we could see getting a championship opportunity. But with all this being said, do I think there should be an interim fight? No. I mean, Islam just defended the belt in June, so let's say it takes a little longer than December. What's longer than December? I mean, unless we're talking about him not fighting until next year, which wouldn't make sense at all, because if he's not going to be able to fight in December, would that push him back to January or February at the latest? If we're talking about how active champions are, there's no reason to make an interim fight then. It seems like the only reason why they would do this is if maybe they have a card where they need saving, you go throw the interim belt in, and that makes it a little more exciting. I mean, you throw an interim championship fight on there, people get a little more excited. That's more exciting than if we just had Dan Hooker versus Arman Tsarukyan for nothing. I mean, to a casual fan, Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker for an interim belt obviously doesn't really mean much. The winner just gets to go against Islam at some point. Even though we have an interim heavyweight champion that's not going to be fighting the heavyweight champion next, but we don't need to get started on that. We all know mostly everyone has the same opinion about John Jones and Tom Aspinall at this point. But hypothetically, you make an interim belt, the winner would go on to face Islam. I don't think they should do that, but if they do, I wouldn't be opposed to it as long as they have a good matchup. As long as you don't throw Arman against as long as they don't throw him against like some guy that there's no reason for him to be fighting. You throw him against obviously they wouldn't do Paddy Pimblett, but you go out there and throw him against anyone towards the bottom that doesn't have a fight right now, it just wouldn't make sense. I think the realistic options, I think a Charles rematch, obviously that would sell a lot if that's an interim fight, but they did just fight. Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier, I feel like those two guys should just fight, especially if Poirier is going to have a last fight. Michael Chandler, that would be interesting just to get him his fight for sitting out for so long, waiting for McGregor. Still don't know why he did that. Like I said before, I don't think McGregor's coming back at any point ever. So, but I think Dan Hooker versus Arman Tsarukyan, if you are going to do an interim fight, would be the best one available. But like I said, I think Islam, there's no reason for him to have an interim fight. If he's going to have to wait until January, maybe February at the latest, that's fine. He just fought in June. So I don't think there's that much of an issue. It is interesting, though, because he was supposed to fight in October. He just fought in June as well, so there wouldn't be that much time in between. Obviously, a few months there, but I mean, not enough time where it's August 26th right now. This guy just fought in June, and Arman's already talking about them potentially having an interim championship fight because he's injured. I don't know. It seems like the UFC has different definitions of how active a champion needs to be. I mean, we're looking at guys, like I said before, I mean, I'm a huge DDP fan. He won the belt in January and just had his first title defense against Izzy this month. So it's January to August, that's 7 months as well. So Islam from June to January, that's 7 months, I believe, off the top of my head anyway. So I don't know what the issue is there. I don't think they should do that. I think Arman versus Islam, I'm not going to go into my full prediction here about that because I think that's going to be a great fight, and I feel like I might bounce back and forth. Either way, though, I mean, Arman's 27. This guy is really good. If you guys watched that fight against Charles, I thought he was done at multiple points during those submission attempts, but somehow got out. This guy's 27, and if there's any guy that can go out there and beat Islam right now, it's Arman Tsarukyan, and he could control this division for a long time like we've seen from Islam, maybe even potentially longer. Let me know down below what you guys think. Do you think there should be an interim title fight, or do you think we should just wait until Islam can come back and we can have him fight against Arman, whatever that is, if that's December or if it's January, maybe February at the latest? Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.